Greetings, welcome to Baba Nyame. I'm your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. On this episode, which is our 100th episode, so congrats to us and to you. We're going to take more of a reflection, sort of take inventory of stock of what we have gone through over the last 99 episodes that I think is of value to me, and I think hopefully maybe of value to you. And so I want to start with this notion, ongoing, idea of healing that interests many of you that have come to this particular channel and of course elsewhere. But since you're here with us, let's focus on what we have learned so far and what is to learn in terms of the future for what we do here at Power by Nyame. One of the important things that I have learned based on reflecting on what I've done through these 99 episodes with you all in this elongated conversation is that healing is a nightmare. And I say that because many of us assume or think or believe, or all the above, that healing is some yoga, meditative, and kumbaya and all pleasant kind of process. No, healing is actually very much surgical, very much painful, very much hurtful, very much the muck and the filth that we have collected over the years and which we have to go through to get to the other side that we may refer to, generally speaking, as healing. And right now we're blessed because it just started raining. You hear the rain in the background? Actually, in the foreground, because it's raining right in front of me, but maybe behind you. And so with this blessing, it's very important to really understand and grasp the notion that healing is a nightmare, right? And this comes actually from someone, who I was speaking to recently, just reminded me that our, very flowerful and fanciful ideas of healing need to be thrown out the window. Here's why. Healing involves touching and tackling and smelling the filth and muck that we have accumulated over the years. What do I mean by that? As soon as we're born into this earth as an infant, as a baby, and we take our first breath, we inhale all the pollutants, contaminants, and malevolent or demonic spirits that inhabit the world and exist in this world. The minute we take our first drink of water or liquid, we take everything. All of the bacteria, the germs, the every kind of microorganism that exists in our waterways and system comes into our newly minted body. We also ingest through the first time we eat, whether through mother's breast milk, and of course whatever she eats becomes, our food as babies. And when we begin to eat solid food, let's say around 6 or 5 months old, we take all in not only nutrients, but also everything that exists in this world. What's my point? My point is this. Our bodies become corrupt and corruptible from birth onward. So we inhabit, meaning we, our souls, our spirit, the real we, exists within this corrupted and corruptible body. Filthy body, diseased body, dirty body that keeps fighting this war against what? All the things that ails us and trying to get to a place, some kind of stasis between things that in the world outside of us that harms and ails us, and something that we refer to as healing. And this is why healing becomes a nightmare, because we become corrupted and corruptible from birth onward, right? Just physiologically speaking. Psychologically, spiritually, the same is true. And so healing becomes a nightmare because it involves going back through that callous and collected filth and muck and corruption over the years. So let's say by the time you get 30 or 40, you have accumulated 3 or 4 decades of corruption, of filth, and the like. Right? Yes, you may say, well, my body looks fine. I work out. For example, I have these workout gloves on, just finished working out. And, I eat well, I'm a vegan, vegetarian, whatever it is that you may claim that you are well. But we are always fighting a battle that we can't win, which is against all the contaminants, all the pollutants, the things that we can't see. And I want to make something very clear to you all. You see, many of us believe that the spiritual dimension or the spiritual slice of existence is invisible. Wrong. It's simply that you just can't see it. It's visible, it's there. And for those of us that can see it, we know that it's visible, it's there. So when we think about, the microorganisms that we can't see with our naked eyes, at least many of us can't see them. I've met, in fact, healers in Ghana, West Africa, elderly healers who do claim that they can see microorganisms, and I don't doubt them, because in fact, if you can see, you can see. So when we think about the unseen part of the world, it's not because it's invisible, just that we can't see it. The same way that you'll hear dogs howl at night. They can see the things that we can't see, many of us can't see with our naked eyes, but they can see them. The same is true if you have birds or parrots and they're outside and they can see things and they'll chirp and they'll go crazy. That's because they're seeing things that we can't see. It doesn't mean, therefore, that the spiritual world is invisible. That is a misnomer. It simply means that you can't see them, but it's there. That said, the same is true for the accumulated corruption and filth that we collect over the years, both seen and unseen, not invisible. And so, peeling back all those layers, pushing back on them, all that crustation of emotions, of trauma, of hurt, and of just contaminants, right? We have to work through. We have to, sort of, not even take a surgical knife, but take a jackhammer, and just trying to drill through and drill down on all that filth. And there's another layer, which is that we inherit the accumulated filth of people that came before us that did not resolve their stuff, didn't get themselves right before they left this world. And so we inherit those things. And it is true, as the elders have taught me, that what don't afflict you will afflict your children or grandchildren. Sometimes it'll skip a generation, but it will afflict the generations to come. And so you may be the recipient of, as folks say in Jamaica, crosses, meaning just things that just take you, that you're wondering, how does this happen, right? It's before you that you have inherited. And so you inherit their filth and their corruption, and it adds on and layers your own. And this is why, this is how healing becomes a nightmare. So, how to address this? There are many ways to do it. There are many rituals to do this. Most important thing is that one has to know the ultimate source of creation, which is the creator for themselves, which is they have to have a direct relationship with that Almighty. And that's how you make your way through, slowly but surely, over time, and with the sort of resolve and patience with yourself. What I want to share with you also a ritual that you can do as well. Here's a ritual. Get ready. So this ritual you can do anytime, anywhere that you have these ingredients available. You would need 1 can of condensed milk. You would need to find a place that has ants, right? If you're in a city, maybe a little tougher, but find a place that has ants, right? Perhaps a park may do, or your backyard or somewhere else. And this is what you're going to do. The place where the ants are settled, and yes, you might be thinking, well, this may be dangerous, they may bite me. They may not, but just hear me out. And so this ritual, which I'll tell you the meaning of it after I describe it to you. When you find the place where the ants are, you're going to dig a hole. Perhaps no more than maybe 5 inches, 6 inches. You dig that hole, but at least deep enough. So let's say 7 inches. And when you dig that hole around where the ants are, they have to be around where the ants are. This is very crucial, right? You're going to speak within that hole all the things that have hindered you, that have held you back, all the things you want to let go of. That is, all the things that you are aware and even unaware, but more things you're aware that you can focus on in that moment, that has, that's part of that muck, that corruptedness, that filth that you've accumulated, and those before you. You want to speak all those into the hole. So you're going to speak into the hole, meaning you're going to put your mouth as close as you can to the hole. Not touch the hole with your mouth, but to be close as you can, because you want to speak into the hole. And essentially what you're doing is speaking to the earth, that is the spirit of the earth, right? And you are essentially giving back to the earth right? Those accumulated things, those hindrances, I call them, to the earth. And what you want to do then, when you're finished speaking, you want to speak, by the way, from your soul, from your heart, and be honest. Because if you're not honest, this will not work. And when you do so, you're going to pour the condensed milk inside the hole. And when you pour it inside the hole, right, you want to ensure that you sweeten. This is why the milk is used. You sweeten the offering, right? How do you conquer bitterness? With sweetness. How do you cure, hurt and heartbreak? With love. And so you want to sweeten your offering that you just said through your mouth to the earth. And when you sweeten it, right, you're also paying forward, but you're sweetening the offering, right? And you want to drop the can when it's finished pouring inside the hole. Then you're going to cover the hole, right? Cover the hole. And the ants may come to the hole, they may not. That's not your problem or your focus. Cover the hole. And when you cover the hole, you're going to turn around and walk away from that spot. You should never return to that spot. Here's why. You have buried those things that have hindered you. To return is to want to claim the baggage you have just given back to the earth. So once you have checked your luggage, so to speak, you put that baggage to the earth. You don't want to return for it. So you should never return back to that particular spot, right? So if it is in your backyard, that's probably not the best place to do so. But if you can find some place in the woods, in the park, or some other place like that, that will be very good to do, right? It could be even on the highway where you can stop by the side of the road and do it there as well. The key is never to return to the spot, all right? Because of what I've just indicated to you. It says that you want to reclaim the baggage that would nullify the ritual. So this is one of several rituals that you can do, but I wanted to give you something simple, something very practical, as always, that you can use in your healing journey. The other thing that I've learned over the course of, doing these episodes, these videos with you, is that there's a lot that is portrayed as Africa-based spiritual practice and ideas when in fact they're not. This is what I mean. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions or disrespect anyone in terms of what they do. But follow me, please. It has come to me clear that something happened along the way that we have lost our way, right? In a grand sense, but I'm being specific here. I'm going back through my notes, and I'm looking through the notes, that I have from the various books that I've written over the years. And I'm looking through two books in particular, right? And I see that for the Akan people, which is what I primarily work on, but not solely. For the Akan peoples in the 16th century, there were documentary evidence for African spiritual practices on the former Gold Coast, present-day Ghana. And so it amazed me how much these people, these African peoples, would, for instance, indicate to the Europeans that, yes, they know God, they've always known God. And yes, we know of miracles, we know of God's work. And yes, we have people who have passed away. In fact, a few people died last week, they said, and came back to life. And so notions of resurrection, notions of miracles, they were anything new to these folks. They say, yeah, we have people who do that. They also say, yes, they do rituals where they would chew a herb in the morning and spit it out 3 times and say a prayer to the Almighty first thing in the morning. Or as their ancestors did, they would also have a Nyame, which is this tree that is cut and has 3 prongs. In the middle of the 3 prongs, sort of stick up like this, there's a calabash. And in the calabash, there's herbs, an egg or 2, water that comes straight, from the sky, and other ingredients that are there. And each morning, what these Akan ancestors would do is take some water, wash their face, and say a prayer to the Almighty. It's called Nyame, that is the Creator's tree, or God's tree, right? And this is an altar that is usually in the front of the house of the main occupants of the land, right? And he's just planted by the Omai Hema, which is the sister, or in some cases, the mother of the ruling male person in the community. And so she plants this in front of her compound, and this is very important. This is for the entire, people live in the compound, and each person would have one of these, in their houses, right? These Akan people were also very clear about that not all spiritual entities or forces are of the Almighty, of the Creator. And so they would actually have those that they would deem not of the God to station them on the outskirts of the villages, that is on the outside of their border, right? And put them there, that they were not of, the spirits that were of God. And what it all says to me is this. It says a few things I think are important takeaways. By the mid-20th century, all that changes. Now we get the idea that the creator to the Akan, whether it's referred to as Onyankopon, Chiampong, Odumankoma, Burobore, and so on, these are all sort of adjective or phrases to describe the qualities of this massive creative force, the Almighty, right? Is that now the Almighty is aloof, is distant, has no direct connection to human affairs and beings. How do we get there? We lost the way. So note that in the earlier centuries, we can see over time in not only reading these European supply records, but also reading the observations. And there's a difference between observation and interpretation. Observation is simply, okay, this is what I see, even if I don't understand what I see, because these are uncomprehending strangers who are coming to a new land with new people. They write down what they see. And a person like me can read, that is, can interpret, make sense of those observations. Those observations fit over time. They match a pattern. And that pattern is consistent. Even within the African diaspora of these Akan people, you see these kinds of practices still continue in the Americas. And so what happens by the mid-20th century is this. African studies happen. You have many scholars who are of a strong Christian leaning that begin to essentially use the missionary records to rewrite African spiritualities in the image of the missionaries, that essentially says the missionaries have the right God and the indigenous people have the wrong belief, right? And so the wrong belief means that their God is aloof, is distant, has no direct connection to people. But the Christian God is there. You can go directly. And that, of course, is when the fraud happens, because all along for the centuries, these Akan people, I'm sure other African people, have a direct connection, no intermediary, right? No pastor, no priest, no intermediary that you have to go through, right? Ritually speaking and otherwise. Yes, there are ritual specialists, but you don't have to go through them because each of us have a direct connection to the Almighty. And this is what I took away from these last 99 episodes. Is that connection, is part of us losing that way, the way in which we engage. And so what happens is we then turn ourselves over to these various abusum, which may not be what people purport, because the people who engage in Akan spiritual practice in the Americas, particularly the United States, they come out of particular traditions. Nana Deni Zulu, for example, for the Yoruba, or Surgiman, who, by the way, didn't go to Nigeria for his, so-called training, went to Matanzas in Cuba, and came back. And Surgeon, by the way, is an Akan name, even though he's Yoruba. But this is part of what I'm referring to here. Again, I'm not disrespecting anyone, but saying that things that we claim to do may not be what we're claiming, may not be the things that as they were, and they may not be as African as we think they are. And so the ancestors, that I read through and listen to through these records, right, either their own or supplied by others, they communicate, very clearly, right, very clearly, that what these deep ancestors were a part of is quite different than what is being claimed to be offered as either Akan spirituality or Yoruba spirituality or Vodum spirituality. And yes, things change over time, but I'm talking about change. I'm talking about, the structure and really what people think they're involved in, because I made this very clear to you. People claim, that they're engaging with, sort of a set group of spirits, whether they are orishas or opusum, and to me, it's too static. It's too, cookie cutter. That you have to have one of this or one of that. You have to be Ogun or Shango. You have to be Daddy Kofi or Nana AC. You have to be this and this and this. And that kind of scriptedness is not how the deep ancestors engage in their spiritual practice. That we of the now are claiming that we're engaged in a similar kind of practice. Now, what do we do about that? Well, we can talk about another episode. For now, the takeaway for me is that really think about this trajectory over the centuries. And that trajectory, I think, can offer a lot for us to question. And those questions should lead to a different kind of knowledge base that may lead to the kinds of answers to those questions than what we've been provided with so far. Papa Nyame, I've been your guide and host. Please drop your questions or comments in the section below. Until next time, stay well.